I'm Toula Oberlies here at Indiana School for the Blind and Visually Impaired. I was actually born in Cairo and then grew up in Minya and lived there till I was almost 11 years old. We came to America, middle 50s, and on the ocean liner, Greek ocean liner, Olympia, and came into New York City Harbor. It was challenging for me for two main reasons. First of all, I couldn't speak the language. And if you couldn't speak English, you were different. They sort of made fun of me, or they would tell me a word and tell me oh yes, this is a new word, and then I would find out later it was not a correct word. Sometimes it was a swear word. It made me very self-conscious. I also looked a little bit different. I still had very long hair that mostly was in pigtails. My mother would put a bow. Sometimes she would take the pigtails and wrap them around my head. And so I looked a little different. What ended up happening with some of my difficulties and how I looked, how I was dressed, how I spoke, ended up causing me to be a stutterer. Things became better as I got into, of course, high school and then my junior and senior year. I made many friends, and then going into college, Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. And about my second year there is when the stuttering started to go away. So that's kind of where life began to change for me. It's also where I met my husband, John. After leaving Athens, Ohio, we came to Indianapolis in the late 60s. And in the early 70s is when I started having my babies, 2 children. In 1974, I needed a little something to do. The arts have always been interested to me because of my exposure, I believe, to them from the beginning of my life. After coming to America, I was always interested in performing arts, whether it was music or acting. I happened to see a very small grouping of Capital City Chorus performing. I fell in love with the music, and I went to a rehearsal, fell in love with the barbershop harmony, and one of the things that really interested in me was introducing barbershop harmony, a cappella style, to students. In the long run, we ended up in over 80-something schools, not just Indianapolis, but central Indiana. And one of them happened to be School for the Blind. Toward the early stages there, one day, going upstairs, Dr. Bina, who was the superintendent at the time, stopped me, and he told me about the foundation. Indiana Blind Children's Foundation was being started, but we don't have anyone to represent the performing arts or the creative arts, and would you serve on this board? Well, I mean, I have to tell you, even give me goosebumps now. That took my breath away, and that's what I said to him. I said, Dr. Bina, no one has ever taken my breath away like this ever before. He laughed, and I was extremely honored to be part of this. Within the second year, I was the secretary, eventually became president, served in that role several different times. People came, people went, the board became smaller, became larger. I am the one that has been with it since the beginning. And other things then became of interest to me, such as writing grants, knowing what needed to happen, such as a new library. The grant for the library became of interest to me because one young woman in our barbershop singers, she was in a wheelchair. So I started to push her wheelchair, and then we realized there was no way that the elevator would get her there. And I thought, oh my gosh, to have students not able to get to the library just didn't make any sense to me. All of a sudden, we see a thing in the newspaper that the Pulliam Trust was going to be started. Dr. Bina and I began writing this grant for the library. And long story short, as everything turned out, we were the very first grant that the Pulliam Foundation presented to anybody. Why am I still here when other board members have left and so forth? I never felt like I needed to leave because there were still things that were needed to happen here. I came from a different country, and my issue had been not speaking the language, realizing the fact that I looked a little different and I spoke a little bit differently. was something that people didn't quite understand and made fun of back then. The fact that their issue is a visual issue and mine had to do with language kind of kept me interested in organizations or schools or groupings, especially if it was kids, that had their own issues. Performing arts have always been interested to me. Seeing that the kids here are interested in them as well is why I want further for them. The fact that they are blind or visually impaired does not mean that they can't sing in a choir or watch a performance of singers or a musical play, because they're familiar with all those things. People are surprised. They know about them. They know about Hamilton, and they can even sing some of that music. And this is what these kids need more exposure to. I think it's available, and we need to further that and make it more available for them. I am, first of all, very honored that this fund was established. I do have many friends, many associates and projects that I have been involved with that I know are interested in similar endeavors. And I know they are giving people, whether it's with their time or with their funds. I think it's important to let them know about the school and the kids in it and how this particular fund could enhance so much of what the students could be exposed to. We could broaden and change their life by that they hadn't even imagined. I am hopeful there will be donations at whatever level works for them, because I know they are caring people and giving people, and that they care about me enough to know why I'm here.